InnerQuest explores various pathways through which you can connect with the infinite wisdom of the universe and apply it to personal, professional, and spiritual growth. This program, featuring accomplished practitioners, educators, and authors, is provided by Infinity Foundation, an innovative center for holistic studies and research. We invite you to share this journey with us.
Hello, welcome to InnerQuest. My name is Jay Stone, your host for today, and our guest is Sarah Karnes. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
Sarah is a life changes coach for women, creator of Yourself as Your Friend program. Sarah's workshops offer practical self-care and insight to realize your life's mission. Sarah's 25 years in personal transformation with the way of the heart give her clients the ability to change their courage, voice, and confidence personally and professionally. Sarah, can you elaborate more on your personal and professional philosophy?
Yes, really, life will always be changing. We're changing on the cellular level and beyond all the time, and our life situations are. Even on at the times that we think we're just moving along and everything's the same, there are changes afoot.
Yeah, so the only constant is change.
Yes.
Okay, and so life is changed as life is changed. So how does that knowledge help one to become successful or become happier or healthier?
If indeed life is change, how do I take care of me? Whatever that version of me is, even in the midst of the changes. And a part of that is learning how to breathe well. Because if I'm not breathing, then my oxygen mask is not on. And we know from flying that if you don't have your oxygen mask on, you're going to overgive to somebody next to you and be drained. So you will be less happy. The other piece of that is when we find out, and this is an ongoing act of learning who we are, you get to be more centered in the who you are, even in the midst of the changes, so the changes don't throw you off your game so much.
Okay, and what are some of the changes that your clients have experienced?
Many. I would say the biggest is finding their juice again, their mojo.
Okay.
Because often when we've been through a major change, we feel exhausted.
Okay.
And parenting was my major initial change. But also coming into, as children get older and start to become more independent, suddenly our parents start to go, wait a minute, what's my role here? It's changing. Who am I in the midst of all of this? And then when we come into midlife changes, grieving, there's a layer of saying, wait a minute, who am I in the midst of all this? And coming to grips with who I thought I was is changing too.
Now, you mainly work with women?
Mainly women, yes.
And why have you chosen to work exclusively with women?
I used to work, and I still work with a few men, but I used to work more so with a wider variety of people, men and women, and more just people around de-stressing and life purpose. And as I came into midlife, I realized that for women especially, changes can be more profound, and not only profound in terms of what's going on, but also profound in terms of what's next. There's a whole birthing process of that new being.
Well, I think culturally we're going through changes, like the Me Too movement. You want to say a few words about like collective change and what our role is in that, or part?
A big piece of it is how we respect ourselves. Because, yes, there's bad behavior on anyone's part. But how do we take care of saying yes or saying no in a healthy way?
Mm-hmm.
And I think really none of us, men or women, were given a lot of training in that. And women more so have felt more doubt or less confidence around that because of some of the cultural memes.
Yes.
And that's been a big one lately.
Well, and I remember Bradshaw, when he was popular, he talked about dysfunctional family. He would say,
Yes.
don't talk, don't feel. Just stuff it away in a closet or sweep it under the rug, but just don't talk about it. Yeah.
And there is a time and a place that it's appropriate to talk about, and a way to talk about it from an empowering place.
Well, and I've noticed that a lot of the women who've courageously have come forward, it's many, many years after the fact. And do you find like a lot of the middle-aged women that you're working with are really coming to grips with some of the abuse or problems they had with as children?
Yeah, and some may have been sexual abuse or something more related to the Me Too movement. Some of it was emotional abuse, or just that sense of feeling so ignored or so devalued that they didn't ever step up and say, hey, I matter.
Yeah. And what is the price men and women pay when they don't change and they need to?
It's big. From a life mission standpoint, my short piece on life mission is everyone has a life mission. And not only is it important for me to live my life mission, that's my reason for being here, what my life mission brings to the world is big. So all of the imbalances, the things that are off key, off kilter in this world, there is a solution. And the more that people get in touch with their unique reason for being here, the more they actually bring that to the table and to the world.
And I've noticed that more people find their life mission, the more they help other people.
Yes, that too.
Usually the life mission involves beyond oneself. Beyond oneself.
Yes, it's who you're becoming, and it's what you're here to do, and it's who you're here to do it with, and who you're here to do it for, who it's going to serve. It's all of those.
Now, in the intro, I mentioned that you've been involved in personal transformation for 25 years. Can you talk a little bit about how your own personal journey has changed with knowledge and experience and training and education?
Yes, quite a bit. Initially, when I came into personal transformation, it was completely out of personal need. My daughter had some health issues, and the doctors were saying we should just permanently medicate her, and I said no. But I didn't have the ability to go online and search. It was pre-internet, so what am I going to do? I had to come out of my shell. So that's the first thing for anybody, to come out of their shell or out of their old ways of being. From there, in terms of the transformation, to continually learn how to be more so in improv, more curious than upset by changes happening, and more determined toward an intention, toward an ideal, instead of stuck in here I am and here's where I want to go and I have no idea to get there.
So it sounds to me like being more proactive would be a way of putting it.
Definitely more proactive and more present in terms of being on the breath, paying attention to the cues, even if it's something going on in the body that feels like a health symptom.
And your daughter today, is she okay?
She is well, yes.
And do you feel that because of what you did in the early days of her diagnosis or treatment, you helped guide her into a better life?
Yes, that was big.
And would you encourage parents or mothers to do that as well?
Yes, and it's a dance. There is no one right answer,
Yeah.
but to stay present. And if indeed, in my case, I just, in my heart and in my gut, I knew that medicating her was not the answer I was going to choose.
Okay.
So whatever might be going on with our children, we will do anything for our children.
Well,
And that's the good news, and sometimes it takes us over an edge that...
Well, and a lot of children don't realize that until they're adults themselves
Yes.
or become parents themselves. What are some of the biggest challenges for people going through major or even minor changes?
The first thing is loss of identity. Who am I? I was this, whether if you're grieving, a parent or a child or a relationship that's not there anymore. Without that, suddenly I'm a different person. And if I've identified myself as the person, the spouse or the daughter or the parent of somebody, and they're not there anymore, it can be a major challenge to say, who am I? Our jobs as well, we tend to identify with.
So how do we find the next identity?
It's definitely a soul searching, but it doesn't have to be a long and exhaustive soul searching.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a regular check-in of sorts in
Okay.
terms of who am I today? What's lighting up in my world? What's inspiring me today? Those kinds of
And your
things.
program, you're the creator of Yourself as Your Friend program.
Mm-hmm.
Does that discuss the importance of one's identity?
We do look at that, because the other thing about identities is we tend to have some identities that are pretty nasty. The little inner critic who lives on our shoulder.
Yeah, the shadow.
Mm-hmm. And if indeed we see ourselves as less than, I'm not good at this, I always run into problems when I do this, we start to manifest a lot more of those problems.
And what are some of the other key components of your program?
The other piece is learning how to breathe correctly. And the word correct isn't maybe the best word. Learning how to breathe well, because there's not one correct way to breathe. Yet most of us are not breathing fully. And most of us tend to hold back.
And where did you get your breath training?
I've had several different teachers in breath work, so I can't say it's one. A couple of pieces have been yoga from my teacher
pranayama.
30 years ago, who was just so patient with me, because at the time I just did not know how to breathe and I would forget so easily, and I still have my moments.
Yeah. Was this in the Chicago area?
This was in Lake Forest. Jillian Dick, many years ago. If you know her, she was just wonderful.
Yeah.
She's passed since, but yes, and then ongoing through yoga. The Way of the Heart also. Kimberly Herkert and Daniel Goodenough have been my teachers and continue to be my teachers and mentors there. And the other piece has been the Way of the Heart, because within the Way of the Heart work, there is a way to actually open the breathing. We've got already these self-imposed lockdowns that go on.
So when you teach workshops and work one-on-one with clients, do you actually teach the breathing techniques?
I teach people how to pay attention to the breathing.
Okay.
That's the first piece always. And then within the Way of the Heart coursework, we do teach breathing.
Okay. Okay. And how often do you teach the Way of the Heart workshop?
They come to Chicago once a year, usually in February.
Okay.
And then I also work with people individually using a lot of the techniques.
Okay.
I bring that into the coaching as well.
Okay. And let's see, what else? Please describe some of your clients' experience as you helped them go through their changes.
One woman, she was I'll call her Mary. She was in the midst of a divorce, and it was quite messy. And she said, I know it doesn't have to be this messy. And especially with children who were experiencing some of the brunt of the messiness, we worked with her on getting clear on what was important to her. And she said, it's not about how the divorce settlement works out in terms of dollars and cents and properties. It's that the children can come out of this knowing that they are loved and they are valuable. So a part of that was helping her remember that she is indeed loved and valuable in the midst of that. So we worked with some integration around that. And then having her take the stand for the children so that it didn't become like a personal battle in the courtroom anymore. And even when things were messy, she just stood with that. And what I loved is she got out of her own way, and everything was able to work out with a lot less drama.
Good. It's good to hear. And do you notice your client, to me that sounded like an epiphany, you know, a realization, an insight turned into action. And I assume that's very common for your patients that successfully undergo change.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other key characteristics of someone successfully undergoing change?
Yes, I would say to know what you want to go for, even if you don't know exactly what it looks like. If someone has a vision for helping neighborhoods be revitalized, or creating murals, or creating a school, whatever that is, if they know that's there and they're willing to give attention to that and work between the creativity and the imagination and naming what that serves, that absolutely gets them through the midst of the discomfort of the change.
And do you ever find it's difficult for people to express what they really want?
Yes.
Yeah.
And mostly it's because we haven't learned how to listen to ourselves.
Yeah. And was it hard for Mary, that client of yours, Mary, to realize she just wanted the children to be unscathed as little as possible with the divorce?
It was, because she was wrapped up in the nuts and bolts and the lawyer dialogue and all of the details she was being asked to put on paper, and she went, wait a minute. Yes, those will need to happen, but first and foremost, I need to show up with love for me and for the children.
I don't know if you know this, but there's such a thing as a humanistic divorce attorney.
I love that name.
Yeah, I didn't know there was such a thing until I interviewed a humanistic divorce attorney.
Oh, wonderful.
For InterQuest here, and
Okay.
it was very, very enlightening, and to realize that all divorces don't have to be based on conflict and anger.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not a divorce, but it's just a situation that is no more. It doesn't have to be as big and as major as a divorce.
I think I'm going to know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How do you and your clients remain calm?
Yes, breathing, indeed. And then beyond the breathing, because sometimes life is wild. There's a lot of incoming, and if we look at our news or anything else going on in the world today, it requires a different level of faith, and that's whatever that is for you, but believing in a better way, that on the other side of who knows what, there is a resolution.
Okay, and so do you have any personal practices that you do on a daily basis? Do you do breathing exercises every day?
I do. I work with breathing exercises. I have a meditation I work with. And then I work with the idea of sensing, because visualization is one thing, but to engage all of the senses so that there's visualizing, there's feeling, what does that feel like to get to your goal or to be in a different way around a relationship. So to see, to feel, to hear, to scent, taste, work with all of the senses, and I really love that.
Okay, and how many minutes a day do you recommend your clients put in doing self-care? I would classify the breathing, the visualizing, the sensing as self-care, or self-development or self-transformation. But how many minutes a day would you recommend your clients put in?
It's a little bit unique. I would say for anybody, 5 minutes minimum, and if they can stretch, I do 30 to 45 to 60, depending on the day. And I say don't beat yourself up because you're not doing that. I recommend doing what you can do that you can commit to doing. And then anything else is icing on the cake. And as you get that 5 minutes down, 6 months later, adding another 5 minutes or another practice or something else will happen much more gracefully.
And those 5 minutes, are there times of the day it's better to put those 5 minutes, like start your day with it, or mid-afternoon when people energy dips? What do you recommend?
I recommend first thing in the morning, and there are exceptions to every recommendation or rule. For some people, they hit the ground running in the morning and it's lunchtime.
Yes.
So, get outside in your car or in a quiet place, whatever that is, and claim it at lunchtime, or claim it when you go home, stop part way and park at a park and claim it there.
And why have you stayed with personal transformation? Why is it still such a big part of your life?
Because it's ongoing. I can say that I'm no longer terminally shy. I'm no longer afraid to claim my voice. I'm no longer afraid to meet people and discover who they are or reveal myself. And I'm still discovering more about who I am and my life mission and new
I think it's going to go on until your last breath, and I really mean that as a compliment.
I completely agree.
Yeah.
That for all of us, that's the case.
Can you talk a little bit about the Way of the Heart and the Way of the Heart's integration process?
Yeah, the Way of the Heart is it's a process, it's a way, it's a lifestyle, and it's a community of people who are standing for life mission. So it's about how do we embody and develop life mission.
Is it just going on in the United States, or is it going on all over the world?
It's in the U.S. and Canada, and we have a handful of people who are bringing it to other places through their own work.
Okay.
But it's publicly taught in the U.S. and Canada.
Please tell us more about the Way of the Heart.
So it's absolutely there for empowering life mission. It also works with field work, and we all have an energetic field that's carrying a lot informationally. And if indeed we're carrying some of our ancestors' traumas, fears, difficulties, the places they didn't have a voice, and we want to change that, we can change that when we work with it energetically in the field work. So there's a process of working in the field work that works quickly. It's very simple. It's a non-dramatic process, and I like that because we don't need extra drama, I think, in this world.
Yes.
And then in that, literally you've shifted the information. And from there, then you can take action on something you wanted to take action on, yet from an empowered place, instead of from that place of someday I want to get there, but I can't.
Now, you mentioned your teachers usually come in once a year in February, but are there like groups, that Way of the Heart groups that meet, just get together on their own to support one another?
Yes, we do regular monthly meetings so that people can practice their skills and learn how to work with others. I want more and more of the students to feel comfortable in working with others.
So is there a Way of the Heart meeting every month in the North Shore?
There is, though, it's for the people who have studied with it,
Okay.
though I absolutely will give people a hands-on experience if they would like it, because it's very experiential.
And what would a hands-on experience entail?
It would start with intention.
Mm-hmm.
You need to know what you're going for. And sometimes it's just to feel more healthy. You know, we keep it very basic, and sometimes somebody has a very specific goal. Then from there, we go in and we de-stress, because whatever that ideal is for them, they haven't gotten to it, or they wouldn't be seeking to get there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's stress around getting to the goal or the ideal. So we'll de-stress that. It's a very simple 5-minute process that gets them breathing differently and removes the charge on it. Then we get to go in and work toward and say, okay, what would that look like? What would that feel like? And we'll work with different aspects of where we had a challenge with bringing anything new into our lives. We'll work with, for instance, there's a way of working with the breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And if indeed we've had this great goal, but we've been holding our breath every time we look at it, we'll open up the breathing.
Okay. And do you find that by working with the intention and deep breathing, that people discover their own instincts, their own intuition, so that they're being guided from the inside out?
Yes, that's really a big part of it, is getting to that place of opening up the inside out resources.
Yeah, it's interesting because the name of the program is The Way of the Heart, and heart disease is one of the leading killers in the United States. But I'd just like to say, just an observation, you know, martial arts, Hapkido, Kendo, Bushido, Aikido, Taekwondo, Do means the way.
Mm-hmm.
And so this really, the name Way of the Heart, to me, has some ancient meaning in it.
Yes.
Was that intended by the founders?
Yes, and really the idea is we live in a world that thinks it's all about the head.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the way of the heart. The heart actually informs the brain, it informs our emotions, it informs everything.
Yeah.
And the field informing the heart, informing the brain, if we can work with it at the field level and the heart's desire, then everything else we do serves that. Okay.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. So for more information about the Inner Quest Talk Show, Infinity Foundation, our guest, Sarah Karnes, stay tuned to the credits at the end. Until next time, we wish you good health, good fortune, good spirits. Sarah, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jay.
Good job.
For more information about this show, our guest, Infinity Foundation, or any of our other programs, please visit our website, infinityfoundation.org, or call us at 847-831-8828.